Hello and welcome to some Sultai Traverse. This is a deck that I played quite a bit a long time ago. After Abzan Traverse kind of fell out of the wayside a little bit because big mana decks were kind of dominating the format. The format became at one point, a long time ago, it was Tron, Titan Shift, and blue-white Miracle controls with Terminus, and I wanted to keep playing my favorite cards, Tarmogoyf, Liliana, Traverse, Grim Flayer, and I couldn't figure out a way to kind of pull those all together. So what I ended up doing was adding blue. I added Snapcaster Mage and Counter Squall, which is an absolutely wonderful card. For those who don't know, it's a negate that also makes your opponent lose 2 life, which is just a really cool effect. It's exactly what I want to be doing against Tron and control decks as a mid-range deck, is I want to be making them lose life while hitting them. It's kind of like a Collective Brutality, but I don't have to pitch cards. It's just such a good card. So the deck would be able to go turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Tarmogoyf. Turn 3 I could either play Liliana, or what I found was almost like Liliana, a lot of matchups, is Snapcaster Inquisition, which kind of mimics a Liliana Plus, or Snapcaster Fatal Push, which kind of mimics a Liliana Minus. So against aggro decks, all of a sudden, I had useful Lilianas that also were bodies. It just kind of culminated in this really cool field deck. It's very greedy. I got 19 lands. I am running a pair of Street Wraiths, and I'm not running Death Shadow. I am running 3 Blooming Marsh, so I'm actually very conscious of my life total here. I know it looks like it could just be a Free Willy Death Shadow style deck, but it's not. It actively isn't. This deck wants to maintain a life total in matchups that it matters. Street Wraith is there to thin my deck, to help facilitate a lower land count, and works really well with Bauble with a lot of my other effects. Also works really well with Grim Flayer. I can put a card on top of my deck, Street Wraith, pick it up. You'll notice in one of the games I have a Street Wraith in my hand and I'm just not using it. I think that a lot of people misplay cards like Street Wraith. They have it like, oh, just cycle and immediately grab a new card, but you're missing the point of what Street Wraith is doing for your deck in that case. In that case, you're taking Street Wraith and you're making Street Wraith into cycle pay 2 life, but it's so much more than that. It's a card that can't be Inquisitioned. It's a card that you can always just pitch away to Liliana if you need to. It's an instant speed way to grow Grim Flayer or Tarmogoyf in a lot of cases. There's just lots of really cool things you can do with that, in addition to, like I said, Grim Flayer and Bauble can let you know it's on top of your deck. If you like it, pick it up. Don't willy-nilly just Street Wraith the moment you get it. That's a mistake. So that deck ended up fading by the wayside when Jund kind of picked up, and it really couldn't handle the value engine that the more tuned mid-range decks could. Also, it was surprisingly weak to Lightning Bolt, with Grim Flayer often being just a 2/2. Now, I've tuned this deck a little bit more, and we had a bunch of new cards, so I wanted to test it, and this was my first go with it. 19 lands is a bit thin, but we have Traverse, and Traverse's first mode almost every single time is get me a basic land, which is just absolutely wonderful. And again, that doesn't fit the feel of what Death Shadow will be trying to do, because I'm going to be going, like, sometimes I go like turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Traverse for a swamp, and then Inquisition my opponent again, like discard again, or push a creature or something, and that's kind of play patterns, and the next turn I play a Goyf. The following turn I play Liliana. That lower land count lets me play kind of like a Xerox Turbo, whatever that is, where you run a really low land count and your top decks are all really gas. Euro is a new addition to the deck I wanted to test. In retrospect, Euro should only be a 1-of. It's a nice little Traverse tutorable target. Early, it can help you stabilize a little bit against aggro. Against control, it can be a nice little threat. I don't think there should be 2 in the deck. That could be replaced by the sideboard Scavenging Ooze or a Liliana. Just pop those right in, and then free up a sideboard slot here. I did want to run the 4 Lilianas of the Vale, but I also love Last Hope, and I wanted to test out to see how Last Hope could do in the modern meta right now. She is a bit slow, but she's very, very powerful, and she facilitates not only Grim Flayer, Traverse, but she also makes Euro so much easier to cast. One note about Euro is the escape doesn't cost black, so these swamps can be a bit of a liability in that matchup. Yeah, a bit of liability in that situation. So, sideboard. The original sideboard was the key to the Sultai Traverse. Sultai Traverse was just green-black Traverse with Snapcaster's main, and that's really all it was. I think I had like one other blue card. Sometimes I ran the Simic Nissa. Post-board, I would run all the counter magic to help me beat the big mana, but we don't need counter magic to beat big mana anymore because we have Ashiok, which is a very, very powerful card. Something else that I would be interested in adding back to my sideboard would be like a surgical extraction, because you could do like a Thoughtseize, and then you could surgical something, and then the next turn you could Snapcaster surgical again on turn 2. And that's just a really strong open against a lot of graveyard-based decks. Collective Brutality is really just here for burn and Collected Company decks. It can also be brought in against Infect. Although those decks all having Vale of Summer make all my black spells a little bit worse, which is why I'm kind of opting for these Aether Gusts, is it just ways to kind of deal with that, while also being really good against Primetime and really good against Euro. The 4th Liliana of the Vale's here, and I like her a lot. I want to fit her in the main. Again, I was probably just cut this Euro here. Vale of Summer is absolutely amazing. One thing I didn't consider when building this list is that I don't think I should run 4 Vale because Teferi Time Cop is in all the control decks, and Vale is good against the control decks. Do you see the problem? Teferi Time Cop stops Vale, so I think I need to figure out a slightly different solution for those matchups. Maybe just another trophy or something else here, or maybe even a Singleton Death Shadow, just to be an extra threat that I can traverse on low mana. So that is the deck. That is the deck tech. It's kind of, the way it kind of plays out is kind of like the old Abzan Traverse list, except it doesn't do as well as Abzan Traverse does against aggro. It doesn't go wide. I don't just stabilize with a bunch of Lingering Souls tokens in a Siege Rhino while I'm hiding behind a bunch of Lilianas. This deck cannot do that. What this deck can do is just do tons of spot removal with Snapcasters and rebuying those with snaps and flipping to them with Flayer. It can do that. A cool line you can do is you can attack, flip a removal spell or discard spell, Snapcaster, buy back the spell you just flipped, and kind of like just see a lot more cards. It plays really sweet once you kind of get the hang of it. It's not an easy deck to pilot. You kind of look at it and be like, this looks like it needs Death Shadow, but again, if you were going to run one, just run like one side in matchups where you need an extra Tarmogoyf. But I don't even think that's necessary. I think that if you were doing that, you'd just be playing a totally different deck. So I rambled a little bit. You can tell this is kind of a pet project of mine. I really enjoyed the league, and hope you guys do too.